Time for our newspaper review. Sally and I are going to just show you some of the headlines from around the world. We'll start with the Financial Times. And in the paper, a so-called annual report belonging to ISIS. That's, of course, the jihadi group which is currently surging through Iraq. A 2013 document claims to list the number of killings ISIS carried out and, amongst other facts, the number of explosives it planted.
The Independent's business section reports UK inflation has taken an unexpected dive to a 4.5-year low, giving the Bank of England a bit more breathing space.
There are new medical warnings in the Daily Telegraph. These claim aspirin pills are ineffective in reducing the danger for people suffering some heart disorders, such as strokes.
The US Financial Times, the front page of its paper, says that YouTube is launching a paid ad-free subscription music service, but some big-name artists will be wiped from the site, with their record companies refusing the contract terms.
On to the international New York Times, and it has evidence suggesting China's President Xi Jinping is pushing his family to sell hundreds of millions of dollars in investments in order to limit his own political vulnerability, because he's claiming that he will tackle official corruption in China.
And the South China Morning Post business section looks at Hong Kong's biggest ever single office transaction. US banking group Citigroup is constructing one building for all of its staff there, all 5,000 of them.
Joining us is Per Wimmer, CEO of Wimmer Financial. Per, good morning to you. Thank you very much for coming in. It is incredible how essentially some people would call them terrorists, to others jihadist means freedom fighter, but trying to legitimize itself by publishing annual reports, and the details are incredible.
Absolutely. I mean, this looks like a corporate report, like an annual report, like BP or any other company would publish. It's quite chilling, actually, to see the extent of the details. And one thing it does show is that these guys are getting very, very organized. Clearly, it's also hit the political agenda. We saw Cameron yesterday saying this is the biggest threat to British security, full stop. So it does have really big implications. But if you look at the stats, they're very chilling. They say they have achieved, quote unquote, thousands assassinations, 10,000 activities, 4,000 road bombs, etc. They're very organized, both in terms of their planning looking forward, like any other corporate would be, and they also execute quite well, unfortunately. So they must be, the only thing that's missing really is a breakdown of where the funding is coming from and what they're spending it on exactly the next few years, because at least we could sort of prepare ourselves for that.
Yes, and of course, if they were a corporation, they would almost have to say where their funding is coming from, but that would probably be the most politically sensitive issue of all. Because if you support them, then you don't mind that they kill, obviously. So there is a political divide there, but the sensitivity of where the money comes from, then that would pinpoint certain nations. You would have thought that it's even some nations giving money to them, not just rich individuals.
Absolutely, and that's the key thing compared to a normal corporate, if you like. But it is chilling how corporate they have become, and also how well they're executing. So clearly there is a bit of big backers behind there. It would be great to see the financial statement when that comes out.
Right, the Independent business section talking, as well as many of the UK newspapers, about the inflation numbers that came out yesterday, which were surprisingly low, a 4.5-year low. And this article talks about the fact that it gives the central bank some breathing space in terms of when it will put up interest rates in the UK.
Yeah, the context is that Mark Carney, the governor, came out last week and said we'll probably need to raise interest rates a little bit sooner than expected. Now, with these numbers, that may not be the case. It may be pushed back a little bit, probably into Q1 next year. And the reason for that is that prices in the supermarkets, and particularly into transportation, such as airline tickets, this is a good news for consumers, they're coming down. And therefore, we have only 1.5% the inflation rate for May, which is the lowest since October 2009.
Now, in terms of, you know, what this means, when are you expecting interest rates to go up? I would imagine it's a big part of your job to figure these things out, isn't it, on the part of your clients and their portfolios?
Absolutely. We expect interest rates to rise in the spring of next year.
So not this year?
Not this year, I'm afraid.
We'll remind you of that first.
Exactly. You can quote me on that. But the key thing to be aware of there is also that house prices continue to rise a lot. So there's a little bit of the dichotomy there, so you have to be aware. 10% on average in the UK, including London, which was up 18%. So that brings up the statistics, is a problem.
Can I just ask as a layman about this story, is there ever a time when it's good that inflation goes up? Is that ever a good thing?
Yeah, a little bit of inflation is a good thing. You don't want to have deflation because that will slow down your economic growth. So the key thing is to get that balance right with sort of the target of 2%. That's a good thing. Not too much, not too little.
Sure. Right, in the Daily Telegraph, aspirin, and there are going to be millions of people all over the world thinking, well, what do I do now? Because aspirin has been treated for people of a certain age suffering from heart disorders and heart defects as a blood-thinning agent, and therefore it's supposed to stop, well, potential heart attacks, potential strokes. And now it's being said here in the UK that actually aspirin's not doing that.
No, so the bad news is for a number of people suffering from this, up to about 1 million people, they should probably no longer use aspirin because of the side effects. So that's the bad news. The good news is there are actually a new generation of drugs that we can use instead, which has got the same efficiency, but it's got lesser side effects. So there is good news. And you can potentially save up to about 2,000 deaths a year and 7,000 strokes. So
it's another example, though, isn't it, of a reversal of advice.
Yes, that's right.
You kind of feel like you don't know where you are, whether you should be taking these drugs or not. It's the same with all sorts of advice about food, what you can and can't eat, what's good for you, what's bad for you. It just confuses people, doesn't it?
It does, but it's obviously dynamic. New research, new discoveries, etc. And I guess that's good news. We're progressing, so you got to be dynamic.
He's a positive, isn't he?
Yeah, well, you
He's
know
a
what?
glass half full
I've
kind
never
of a
liked
chap.
margarine anyway, you know, butter, margarine, which one should you eat? But I do like YouTube, and I mean, that's not a product endorsement. It's just that there's so much you can see on YouTube, and music, actually, with my kids is one thing that I'm always going to, and I'm saying, look at this classic singer from my youth, enjoy this, and they say, nah, I'm bored by that. They like Adele, but they may not be able to see Adele because of this deal that Google is putting together with YouTube, and something about artists not being happy with the deal, and so they would pull their music off.
Yeah, well, first of all, most artists, about 95%, have actually signed up to this new deal. So it is the small minority of people that has got a problem with this, with these new terms. And what it does is basically it allows you as a consumer to sign up, pay a monthly fee, and therefore you don't have to watch the advertising that's associated with watching your favorite artist. And if the artists don't sign up to that, they'll take you off. So, but it's a reflection of the music industry changing yet again. We saw Apple's bid for Beat Music paying $3 billion.
Yes.
So there's obviously a big shift in the industry going on, and YouTube and Google is just reacting to this.
Now, let's have a look at the International New York Times. President Xi Jinping of China, it says here, preparing to tackle what may be the biggest case of official corruption in more than 6 decades of Communist Party rule. This has been a theme ever since the new leadership came into power. That was the one thing they said they would really try and tackle in China, and it seems he's got to clean up his own family.
Absolutely.
Before he moves any further ahead. Tell us what's going on.
Well, spring cleaning starts at home. So the problem is he can't make big statements about anti-corruption, this sort of thing, and yet his near family members have got vast fortunes amassed, and also with he's got indirect economic interest at stake here. So they're going to have to dispose of those, so at least he's can make more objective decisions from here.
I mean, do you think it's going to work? I mean, will people, you know, in China looking at this situation think, I mean, it's interesting, a lot of people that the BBC have interviewed in China say that they just feel corruption is just here to stay. It's something that will never really get properly sorted out.
It's very difficult, unfortunately, and China is not the only country. It's sort of across the globe, and particularly in the emerging market, you see a lot of these politically exposed persons and their families gathering a lot of wealth in the process just because of where they're sitting. So I think, unfortunately, it's not something that's going to go away anytime soon.
So we just got 1 minute left, Per. In the South China Morning Post, in the business section, the US banking group Citibank spending, how much was it in dollars?
It's over, I can't remember precisely, $687 million, something like that.
To buy one tower block in Hong Kong, to put all of their employees in the city. And Well, it just shows that Hong Kong is still all important. Whatever China's been saying in the past few days, remember, we're in charge, Beijing is saying. But still, for the economic powers of the world, Hong Kong is important.
Absolutely. So it shows three things. Hong Kong is certainly a very important hub. City is consolidating their operations, taking a lot of people into one tower as opposed to having them in all sorts of regional offices. There's also a bit of operational efficiency as a result of that, is what City is hoping to do. And they're clearly also taking a view on the Hong Kong property market, that things are going up.
Excellent. Per Wimmer, you know what I always like is our guests always stop talking at the right time because it's time to say goodbye. Bye-bye.
See you soon. Bye-bye.